The Wheel of Time hit its stride in Season 3. After an inconsistent first season and a good second season with some faults, this Amazon Prime series, based on the late Robert Jordan's high fantasy Wheel of Time epic, believed by many to be one of the all-time greats of the genre and is considered by me to be of the highest caliber of the good shit, has become a great show without caveat. If anything, it's pretty damn awesome, and there is a definite reason for this. And no, it doesn't have to do with this sleep paralysis dominatrix or a power ballad about tits, but rather the real reason is that this season adapts The Shadow Rising, which is usually praised as one of the series' best, and is a very notable installment in the series, considering that the first 3 books of the Wheel of Time series, which are The Eye of the World, The Great Hunt, and The Dragon Reborn respectively, ranged from very good to great, but weren't necessarily reads that catapulted the Wheel of Time into contention for being the greatest of all time, or GOAT rather. F***ing goats. The Shadow Rising, however, changed that shit immediately, elevating the Wheel of Time to the point that fantasy aficionados began considering the series' ultimate potential, kickstarting the Wheel of Time into the eventual express lane to fantasy's Mount Rushmore, or at least a version of Mount Rushmore that isn't ugly gauche vandalism of both nature and indigenous culture. And people, including myself, because despite what you may believe, YouTubers are people too, don't forget to like and subscribe, had every justification to applaud The Shadow Rising and bump an already great series of books up into another tier. And that reason is that The Shadow Rising is fan-tastic, mostly because it tied together everything that made the previous 3 books great and presented something new, i.e. our lovely, personal, and characteristically distinct country bumpkin protagonists coming into their own as formidable presences with power, whether that be physical, political, magical, and or gambling, as they go on a sprawling fantasy adventure across a fictional continent that doesn't really have an in-universe name, which is odd, but I'll allow it, with 4 concurrent major plot threads alongside numerous subplots, as well as character arcs within those said plots and subplots, which seems like a lot, because it is a lot. Good on you for noticing, because in almost any other story, that would just be too much shit happening at once and thus lack focus. The worst possible nightmare for those of us with ADHD. Well, aside from trying to remember, well, I don't remember. Yet, The Shadow Rising juggles all of these narratives and characters which intersect and diverge in equal measure, all while operating in literary harmony. In other words, all 4 of these often disparate main plotlines, subplots, and individual character arcs read in cohesion, meaning that The Shadow Rising absolutely bangs. And much of that carries over in The Wheel of Time Season 3, mostly because showrunner Rafe Judkins and the writers had a lot of exceptional material worth adapting here. Though, as with any adaptation, there are changes, some of which are good and some of which are lesser, but at its best, The Wheel of Time Season 3 represents a lot of what made The Shadow Rising such an awesome read in the first place. And that all starts with The Wheel of Time Season 3's story. The plot follows, well, it follows a lot of people, otherwise this wouldn't be The Wheel of time, but let's start with the basics here. But the series' main protagonist is Joshua Stradowski's Rand al'Thor, a young former sheep herder that is from the Two Rivers, which is in the middle of nowhere. Nebraska joke. During the first 2 seasons, our boy Rand learns that he is a reincarnated soul that is spun out of the Wheel of Time. Reincarnation is a big thing in this series, by God, or rather the creator, no relation. And this is the case for one specific purpose, to save the world from the Dark One. You know, the one who is dark and peruses Hot Topic. In Rand's previous incarnation 3,000 years prior to when this series starts proper, he was Lews Therin, a man, labeled the Dragon, who wielded considerable power and could channel Sight-In, i.e. the male half of the source that allows men, or at least the men with the talent to access it, to channel the one power, which in layman's terms, this means those dudes can do cool magic shit, and Lews Therin was well respected in his era because he was the absolute best at doing cool magic shit. However, Lews Therin was also very arrogant and believed he and some of his strongest male channelers could seal the Dark One in a prison, which they succeeded, but at a cost. The Dark One and his Forsaken, channelers of that era who swore allegiance to the Dark One, were ultimately imprisoned, but unfortunately, the Dark One struck back before he was sealed in by corrupting Sight-In, tainting it to the point that every male channeler currently alive, as well as from then on, would inevitably go insane, which is a major problem and a societal threat when they can also channel the one power, because, you know, not everyone is equipped to hold the equivalent of a nuclear arsenal at their fingertips. relationships, least of all the male channelers losing their sanity and objective observable reality. They essentially became living suitcase nukes overnight. Good times were not had. 0 out of 10. Though Saidar, the female half of the source that allows women to channel the One Power, was unaffected, which I guess that was a major comfort for those who suffered during that era of fantasy history, which is referred to as the breaking of the world. Sure, many surviving people lost their loved ones, homes, livelihoods, and access to their wealth of monthly subscription services, but they could be at peace knowing that, hey, at least women are in charge now. Take that, misogyny. Fast forward to the start of Season 3, and Rand has accepted that he is the Dragon Reborn, and is the prophesized chosen one of the cycle who must combat the forces of the Dark One, unless of course he fails or even swears allegiance to the Dark One instead. Additionally, Rand is also cognizant of the fact that he is a ticking time bomb and that he will eventually go insane due to the Dark One's taint. Phrasing. Meaning that he needs to accrue more followers and supporters aside from those already in his proverbial corner. Core cast members such as Rosamund Pike's Moiraine, an Aes Sedai, read female channeler of the One Power in an organization of female channelers of the One Power, whose personal mission was to find the Dragon Reborn and train and better equip him to fight the forces of evil like the monstrous Trollocs, Fades, and these dipshits with the long-ass fingernails. Okay, most of these guys aren't technically servants of the Dark One, but whatevs. Then there is Daniel Henney's Lan, Moraine's warder, read Aes Sedai bodyguard, who is the king of a lost land. There's the rest of the Two Rivers crew who grew up with Rand, like Madeline Madden, super smart and exceptionally powerful Aes Sedai in training Egwene, Zoe Robbins, Aes Sedai in training Nynaeve, who is a healer and the most powerful female channeler of her age, but is also held back by how she currently can only channel when angry, which that honestly shouldn't be too hard of a task, Nynaeve. Just imagine the St. Louis Cardinals winning the NL Central this year. Shit makes me furious. Donald Finn's Matt is a mischievous rapscallion who has impeccable luck and visions from the lives of past warriors and generals, and overall believes that he is not a hero, even though his actions often say otherwise. Also, he really enjoys boning. Hashtag the horny of Valir. And rounding out the primary Two Rivers crew is Marcus Rutherford's parent, a thoughtful, contemplative, and sweet man wanted for murder, and can also commune with wolves and has wolfish attributes, most notably his golden eyes. No relation. So yeah, that's a lot of core characters. And there's more! There's Cara Coveney's Elayne, the posh daughter heir of Andor and Aes Sedai in training, who befriended Egwene and Nynaeve in the second season and was more than willing to get her royal hands dirty alongside her new compatriots. Hammed Animation's Loyal, who is an Ogier, a race that is in tune with nature and have incredibly long lifespans with a slow process when it comes to aging, which basically makes him fantasy Paul Rudd. There's Iola Smart's Avienda, who is a maiden of the spear for the Aiel, a people steeped in tradition and are renowned warriors across this continent with no name. God, I'm still not over that. Kai Alexander's Min, who is essentially a seer, which he often views as a curse. And then finally, Sophie Okanedo's Siuan Sanche, the Aes Sedai's leader, Moraine's secret lover, and an expert when it comes to crafting a great metaphor involving fish. And I mean that literally, get your mind out of the goddamn gutter. And admittedly, there are other important characters who contribute to the overall narrative, but for the sake of brevity, I will stop here. And all these characters, and many others, contribute to the 4 key major plot threads, one of which takes place in the Aiel Waste that really showcases the areas in which the Wheel of Time series was inspired by Dune, another involving a Two Rivers homecoming that goes awry due to that said home being threatened by the dual threat of Trollocs and the Children of the Light, an organization of religious fanatics who wish to spread their religious views across the continent, even by committing violence, because nothing says love thy neighbor like committing crimes against humanity. Another storyline is to prevent exiled Aes Sedai sworn to the Dark One from obtaining a MacGuffin that would endanger Rand, and finally there's political trouble in the Aes Sedai stronghold of Tar Valon, the city-state and island that is pretty much Aes Sedai HQ, and that on a map also looks like a vagina. Hashtag Vagiland. All 4 of these major plots were present in The Shadow Rising, and adjacent to the book, these storylines absolutely elevate the Wheel of Time TV series into its own unique league in terms of its fantasy world, lovable 4-dimensional protagonists, and how those said protagonists impact the world around them and dramatically change throughout their journeys, both in regards to their influence in the world as well as just being characters. There are epic battles, major revelations, and a lot of noteworthy character growth for nearly all of the main cast. And it was as exciting to watch as it was to read in The Shadow Rising back in the day. Sure, there are changes and alterations, some due to time constraints as well as plot points from other books inserted into the narrative that are executed with varying success depending on who you ask, though for me the batting average was pretty great, but these generally serve the overall story well. The Wheel of Time Season 3 just captures the Shadow Rising Rising's narrative magic with surgical precision. It's got the juice. And that's even before we get to individual character arcs, such as Rand growing into his role as the world's savior, all while slowly but surely going insane, Moiraine realizing that she no longer has as much control over Rand as she once did, Lan balancing his troubled legacy, all while being romantically involved with Nynaeve, Mat searching every possible way to banish the intrusive thoughts haunting him, Therin learning to accept social and political power even though he doesn't want to, Nynaeve being unable to circumvent her mental block, preventing her from channeling, unless she has incredible Hulk levels of angry, Egwene becoming a dreamwalker in the dream dimension of Telehemroid, Siuan's political games, Elayne becoming accustomed to the life of common folk in terms of living arrangements and getting absolutely shit-faced, and so on and so forth. The Wheel of Time Season 3 just captured the Shadow Rising's heroic yet humanly flawed protagonists and their arcs incredibly well. However, with that being said, the Wheel of Time Season 3 doesn't embody the Shadow Rising's near perfection in its entirety. After all, a lot happens in that book, basically the longest book of the entire 15-book series, which is saying something. And with just 8 episodes, even with lengthier episode runtimes compared to some of its peers, this means some narratives and arcs required condensing. Even though the emotional points still come across to us as viewers, there are certain plot points that the book handles better just due to how the Shadow Rising has a story that never necessitated the similar type of time limitations as a major television production, which was good for Robert Jordan because wow did he enjoy describing things, even things that didn't matter. Because Mr. Jordan, no one cares about goddamn doublets, but we do care about the tugging of our braids and smoothing of our skirts. Obviously, that just goes without saying. But anyway, the point. The Shadow Rising's major storylines had incredible build-up before their eventual climax.
Phrasing.
But given the Wheel of Time Season 3 had those aforementioned time constraints, some arcs and even core storylines just didn't feature the same level of narrative layering compared to the source material. It's just a noteworthy problem. But regardless, the Wheel of Time Season 3 ultimately posits many of the Shadow Rising's most exemplary traits, even with its flaws. Whether it be the strong character arcs, the great narratives, and the unique additions to the series' overall world building, the Wheel of Time Season 3 is very much representative of the Shadow Rising's greatest qualities. And for that, Amazon better renew the Wheel of Time for a 4th season or else face the wrath of Riley. Because don't let this baby face fool you. I'm fucking feral. If anything, Prime canceling this series in its prime would be a crime, especially given that the Wheel of Time is finally reaching its potential. And if the creatives behind this series could adapt the Shadow Rising so damn well, just imagine how they can build off that and adapt many of the other great books in this series, the ones that ultimately confirmed the Wheel of Time's place among fantasy's all-time greats. Amazon better renew this show or else I'll hold it against them forever, because ultimately we deserve more time with the Wheel of Time.